Hello, Cardinals Nation 24/7, and welcome to this bonus edition podcast. Myself and fellow co host Chris Lawless, we're going to talk about a couple of recent acquisitions that the Cardinals have made over the past week and through the weekend. As we go into spring training, it's a couple of moves that fans probably weren't hoping for, but I think once we get into the silver lining of these acquisitions, we'll see that they're probably not as bad as everyone is making them out to be. Chris, good evening. How are you?
Pretty cold, 0 degrees here in Rolla, Missouri.
Well, I didn't want to go Valentine's Day without seeing your face, so I wanted to. So here we are.
There you go.
Get my flowers.
Oh, I sure did. Those tulips.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome for that. We'll jump in here. The first pickup that the Cardinals made was they traded for a pitcher, everybody. And no, it's not the pitcher that everybody wanted. A young man by the name of Szczur Quezada. They got him from the Phillies in exchange for cash. How much cash is unknown to us at this time, but he came about, Chris, because the Phillies re-signed Didi Gregorius and they needed to free up a spot on their 40-man roster. They had originally picked him up from a waiver claim off of the Marlins in October. So we picked him up. It's not the pitching everybody thought. That roster move put us at 38 out of 40 players on our 40-man roster. He's a 26-year-old pitcher. Spent most of his time with the Twins. He basically was did most of his pitching with the Marlins and the Twins. He made his major league debut last year with the Marlins, only pitched in 3 innings, but his upside is he throws a hard fastball. He was clocked at 97 miles per hour with his fastball. But most of the season he was spent at the alternate site. So, Chris, where do you see this move ranking up? Why do you think the Cardinals made the move, and why does it make sense?
Well, I know that's when you say it's not the move that a lot of fans were talking about. Is we were rumored to be in on Odorizzi or somebody that would be maybe an impact pitcher, but I think this more solidifies somebody like a Reyes or something getting an opportunity. And even guys like Cody Whitley or Jake Woodford being more on the cusp of making the roster and needing some arms down in the minors. I mean, I know he's getting that invitation to camp, and he does have an upside. He throws around 97 mile an hour, has a sinker and a slider. I don't think it's a move that necessarily really impacts the big league club, other than just giving them maybe another hard thrower, but I think it more gives those other young pitchers a chance at the major league level and kind of fills out a spot in the minors.
Sure, I think the Cardinals too are seeing this as maybe as a depth move. With it's going to be a COVID season. Obviously, they've already made some changes to spring training with the way the divisions line up and who they play. So, with the COVID season last year, we saw a lot of pitchers make their debut for the Cardinals and then get released because of a lot of moves on the 40-man. So I think I see this as a depth move with someone that can actually throw hard, maybe get some outs, and in case they need the depth, it's there. You can never have enough arms, I guess. Proves true to this young man here. Quezada, his biggest sampling size is for the Twins, which is where he's been a farmhand most of his career. A 3.44 ERA in 2019, 52 innings pitched. The good thing that I like about him is he's a ground ball pitcher, which the Cardinals seem to like. 53% ground ball rate, so which means he's not getting the ball up in the air, which is nice. Less home runs. And they're saying basically, just from what I've read, that if he can improve location, he's got some deficit upside, and the Cardinals maybe see him as a project pitcher, which they normally like. So I'm sure Randy Flores was kind of talked to about this acquisition before it happened, and the Cardinals obviously saw something because as soon as he was let off the roster, they picked him up and wanted to trade for him. So, I mean, ground ball pitching's what the Cardinals like.
6'9". He's a big old boy too.
Yeah, and he's still young, only 26. So he's got time, and I think the Cardinals see him as a project, and they don't see it being a bad move. If it doesn't work out, then I think they're kind of on the assumption is then it doesn't work out, and we've got a little more depth for the year. So you never know who's going to be injured, who's not going to be able to make it, or COVID may come into play again this year. So the depth is a good thing. On to our next acquisition. After that, the Cardinals acquired Sanchez, the catcher from the Mets. Basically, they needed room. Same thing as they did for Quezada with the Phillies. They needed room on the Mets after they acquired Jonathan VR, and they needed room on their 40-man roster. So obviously, we picked him up. That puts us at 39 of 40 on our 40-man. He's 24. He doesn't have much major league experience either. I think he's got 10 at bats where he's 1 for 9 with a walk. Above average defender, though, really good at defense, I think, is what people like about him. And he's got solid bat-to-bat skills, but not any power. You and I talked about this, Chris, but we see them with the expanded rosters. They usually make them carry an extra catcher. We didn't see them signing a guy like Wieters again, and they're not going to call up another prospect to not do much. So I think this is a move you and I discussed on prior shows, picking up a catcher of this type and ability. But I think for Cardinal fans, they should be happy because I think this is a better acquisition than I was expecting. He's a solid defensive guy, can put the ball in play, can swing the bat a little bit. He doesn't have any power, but very solid defensively. In case, Yachty does start to break down. You've got Kinsner, who's more known for his bat than he is his defense. So is that kind of where you see this? Just a depth move, something we kind of already talked about, but better than we had originally thought.
Yeah, I know there's several catchers that we've got that have the invitation to spring training, but everybody that's ready to see, like Ivan Herrera, he's a couple years away, and
Sure,
Kisner's going to be your everyday backup. And like you said, they're going to carry 3 catchers, at least we think, for the majority of the time. And he does give you that defensive type of, I don't know, catching that we don't know that Kisner's not going to be capable of doing that, but it doesn't hurt to have a guy that can handle that. So even though that's not another flashy move, that's, it makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I think you see more maybe Kinsner slide into the role Wieters had before of pinch hitting in certain situations, or, he can play a little more and they don't have to worry about it. If they've got Sanchez on the bench, they can kind of they have a little more room to work with. It makes the roster a little more fluid and a little more you might see, if it's a game where we have the lead or we're losing, I think you could see, Yachty, spell Goldie at first, or if the DH does come into play, it gives us another option. You might see Kinsner or somebody catch while Yachty's DH or vice versa. I think it just kind of opens some things up, but having him on the team is definitely a good thing. If we're going to need a third catcher, like you said, the other young guys, they're not going to want to put them on the bench to sit all year. They're going to be getting, at bats and working behind the plate a lot in the minor league system this year. So, basically, I was going to get to last year. Well, I guess not last year, 2019. The kid hit 261, 326, and 322 with 1 home run and 17 doubles, which is perfectly in line with his 6 previous years of minor league numbers. Basically, kid hits 261, which today's game, that's not a bad batting average. It's not great, but it's not bad. A lot of people hit worse. Good thing I liked that I noticed about him, Chris, too, when I read about him, he only strikes out 14% of the time, which is pretty impressive. And he's had almost 1,500 minor league at bats. So to me, that's kind of nice. He doesn't have power, but he's got good batting skills, good defensive player, doesn't strike out a lot. Hopefully, that's going to fall off a little bit with the big leagues. You're facing different talent levels, obviously, but hopefully some of that will, transition, and it usually does, to the big league level, not on the same scale, but, you find a middle ground. So I like the fact he's just not going to come up and like your backup catchers of old and be a guaranteed out. But what I did like is he threw out 44% of would-be base stealers in 2019. And that's a pretty amazing amount. But what is even more amazing is for his minor league career, he throws out 46% of would-be base stealers. So he's really an exceptional defensive catcher, great arm, knows what's going on behind the plate. That is something the Cardinals like and haven't been able to find a whole lot of. The last one we had that was probably decent behind the plate, I would probably say, would be Tony Cruz. He was pretty good at following Molina's lead. And this kid's pretty young too. He's 24, so he's got a lot of time left, and maybe he'll turn into something else. What are your thoughts? You think the Cardinals saw him drop off of the Mets and said, "Oh, this guy's better than what we want and need. Let's go get him."
It's probably a combination of that and, getting him on the cheap it doesn't make sense to go out and get a Matt Wieters type of backup catcher that just pushes Kisner back down again. And if you're going to give him a shot, I know a lot of people were, when Yachty comes back, it's, how many games is Yachty going to play and how many is Kisner going to play? But I think he needs to be your everyday backup and really get to mentor Yachty from the big league level. And
Sure.
So I think that's basically what this move does, is just gives you that third option that you need on certain days.
I agree. And all the playing time for everybody in that at that catching position is going to be based off of Yachty. How good he does when he comes in behind the dish with the bat in his hand. If he's not playing as well and you can tell there's signs of fatigue and he's tired, obviously we're going to see Kinsner play more. If Yachty is Yachty of old, to where he looks good, he's healthy, he's performing, he's got the passion, he wants to be out there, then Yachty's going to be playing a lot. And if something comes up to where he's not, it's going to be Kinsner. Sanchez is just going to be there to back both guys up, and in case late inning game, doubleheader, something of that nature where he needs to come in and, maybe you might see Kinsner come in and pinch hit for someone, and then you might see Sanchez come in after that. You might see Bader run. There's a lot of different things. Kind of opens it up. You don't have a weak backup defensive catcher after that. So yeah, that's kind of nice. And it's kind of move the Cardinals like to make and are known for. So I really like both of those pickups. I think they give us some depth that we need this year. I think we have a good bullpen. Like you and I have already talked, you think we probably have the best bullpen in baseball, but neither one of these deals hurt us, and they didn't really cost us anything except a 40-man spot, which was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
The last deal that we got is the Cardinals signed Matt Caesar, just like Julius Caesar's how you say the last name, even though it's spelled quite differently. They signed him on a minor league deal with an invite to big league camp. Now, this one did kind of confuse me, Chris. And what do you think the Cardinals' thoughts are here by going out and picking Matt up? I mean, we don't really have a fit for him or a spot for him, but I think it's just a death move or something. Do you think that someone sees something out of him, or are you confused like I am?
I am just as confused. I understand, having to have some depth, and with trading Fowler, you're basically saying that you're ready to give the young guys in the outfield their go. And when you've got the three that we're going to go ahead and predict that start, and Carlson, Bader, and O'Neill, you do have Thomas and you do have Justin Williams that are going to be neck and neck, I think, for getting some playing time. And then you've even got Austin Dean. And I just don't see this being any more than just filling a minor league spot. I know there's also been some articles that I'd read where the Cardinals should go out and get a Brett Gardner or something like that, and I wasn't on board with that either. He's a aging ball player that would have cost money and not really brought any more to the table than what we've got. But a move like this, I don't think any of the young guys that we have are looking over their shoulder too worried about him coming up and taking their spot. But it was definitely a head scratcher of, his numbers aren't eye popping. He's 31.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He's 31 years old. Yeah, hits 231 over 660 career plate appearances in the major leagues. Spent all his time with the Cubs and the Padres from 2014 to 18. He hasn't been in the majors since 2018. He was signed by the Diamondbacks in 19, I believe, and then the Phillies last year, and didn't make either one of those teams. And the Phillies ended up releasing him in June, I think. But he's 31 years old. The Cubs drafted him in the 5th round in 2010, made his debut in 2014, which he was on the World Series team for the Cubs. And a lot of people that are Cardinals fans probably know the name, especially when you see the spelling. You kind of registers in your head like I've seen that name somewhere before. But really, for his career, he's 12 home runs and 61 RBIs. That's basically out of a 4-year career. Like you said, I could see for depth, but then I find him very comparable to an Austin Dean. So, and I already don't know where Austin Dean is going to be on this team. The good news with Caesar is it is a minor league deal. So I guess if he's not on the 40-man. So if we don't have a need of spring training, he'll either accept his minor league assignment, or they will release him, which being 31 and much to go off of, I'm assuming he would accept his assignment. Unless the
Yeah,
Cardinals are looking to make another trade, which I don't think so. I mean, I kind of go off the Cardinals said they're happy with what they have going into spring training, which is what they always say, but I don't see us having a need or any real desires to get anyone, especially it's going to be hard to justify if they spend money, considering they didn't bring Wong back. I think if we spend money on someone else, it's going to be kind of hard to justify. I don't think we need the starting pitcher everybody says we need. I mean, what say you, Chris? Give me your opinion. Where do you see this team at? Do you see us having a weakness? If you did say we had a weakness, where would it be?
it could be a strength, but our weakness right now is the outfield in the fact that they are young. You kind of have got your feet wet with Bader and O'Neill on what they are, but not. I mean, they're young enough that they can still improve. And same with
Sure.
Carlson. I mean, he came up, he struggled a little bit, got sent down, came back up, was pretty impressive from then on. And he's most certainly got to play every day. I mean, they've got so much invested in him being their top prospect that even through
Sure.
struggles, they've got to keep going with him. But I think with the outfield, there's just no proven stats that are eye popping that you would think a playoff outfield would have. I mean, we're great on the
Yeah.
corners now. DeYoung's solid at short, and you're kind of head scratching a little bit on Edmund and Carpenter at second. Is he going to either one going to be that much of a defensive liability? Yachty's Yachty. I'd say our outfield is probably the most concerning on are they going to be living up to the hype?
Sure. And I know I know you do a lot of checking into our pitchers. We're going to dive into this on our next flagship show with our regular season episodes. But where do you see your pitching? Is that an area of strength? Do you think we need another arm in the rotation? Are you good with what we have?
I'm
It's
good
kind
with
of
it.
for me. I kind of think we have depth, but it's kind of a head scratcher. It could be we have a lot of guys on the team to where they could emerge and be amazing pitchers, and the thought of getting anyone can sound like a joke, or else you have a boom boom or a couple get in their own head, and next thing damn, we could really use a pitcher. What are your thoughts on our rotation? I know we got Quezada, but do you see them looking to make another move, or are they happy with what they have?
I would think they're happy with it, what they've got. I mean, we've talked and kind of give a rundown before of where we slotted in the five starters and having Flaherty as your ace and Wainwright and Michaelis, and then it's KK Kim and Carlos having a spot. And if Carlos doesn't pitch up to what we know he's capable of and they move him back to the pen, you do have Ponce, you do have Gant. Genesis Cabrera, I think, could take that spot, but having that lefty in the bullpen, I think gives them a weapon along with Andrew Miller. And we brought up Alex Reyes and Junior Fernandez too, of guys that could step in and start. So most of our bullpen, like I said before, is all starters that have turned to relievers. And I don't think going out and spending, and not necessarily big money, but even money on an Odorizzi is money that you have to spend when you've got this many arms that can come in and give you spot starts or be able to take over that fifth spot if, say, an injury happens.
Sure. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I think we're done making moves unless it's just too good to pass up, or someone's looking to make a trade. I was saying on which we'll talk about that too. I was saying on a separate little just audio podcast I do just for my own fun, more of a hobby type thing, is that the Cardinals and a lot of the beat writers that follow the Cardinals seem to agree that if the Cardinals are doing well and to June, July trade deadline approaches, can't get it out, they will be more inclined to make a move this year with Wainwright, Molina, the team they have together. If we're doing well in the race and division leading, and someone else is not, say someone like the Nationals, just throwing this out there, somebody like a Scherzer could become available for their last year. And then the Cardinals do have chips because they didn't hurt anything with the Arenado trade. So you could package someone like a Kinsner or even another catching prospect or one of these outfield guys that we have that we can't do anything with it. Otherwise, the Nationals would just lose out at the end of the year. And the reason I say that is just because I know that division is going to be tough with the Mets getting significantly better. Phillies are going to be a horse, so it'll be real interesting to see how they end up on the National League East. And the same way could be said for the did what they did, because you have the Dodgers and the Padres obviously are going to run away with that division, and everybody else is just going to be hanging out for the next couple. And that's another thing. I don't want to get off too off topic, but the Cardinals is saying about these moves, but these are good solid depth moves. Quezada getting Sanchez, Caesar not so much, but it's not something that hurts a team. You just figure where's he going to play. But you know, in the thick of it every year, we're competing every year. And you have other like the Rockies and Diamondbacks and stuff that are just basically saying, "Hey, we're going to mail it in the next couple of years. We don't have a chance." You know, Cardinal fans should be happy that we do have a good chance pretty much every year, and our team makes solid moves like this. You know, let's put faith in the brain trust and the front office. What they Goldie and another Goldie back here, they agree with me. And Aussies appear in the corner. You know, they agree, but I think we have a pretty good uh, team. But you know, we'll talk more about that on individual shows, and then obviously I'll plug our show coming up later this week on Thursday on Cardinals Nation 24 is we're going to be doing basically a talk prospects, but it's also kind of prospect / spring training preview, you could call it. So if anyone has questions or want to ask anything, feel free to do so in the comments here on YouTube, or else on the Facebook page or the Facebook group, or just send them to us directly. But Chris, you're also working on a side project. Why don't you let everybody know what that is and where they can find it?
Yeah, I've just recently started on the Anchor podcast, and you can find it on Spotify and a few others, but it's called Cardinal Cuts with Chris Lawless. And basically it's just a Q&A audio that I'll put a post out in our Facebook group and on Twitter, just kind of getting some fans to submit some questions that aren't really a deep dive, just kind of opinion based, and you know, something for me to shoot back and forth and give a little take on what's going on with the current state of the Cardinals. But yeah, I've just had one episode of that, trying to make that a weekly thing, you know, something that, like you said, just for fun. And yeah, I know when we talked earlier, some of the moves that the Cardinals have made, one thing that has also happened was that Jack Flaherty, you know, we kind of lost out on the arbitration hearing. The Cardinals did anyway, but Flaherty got his payday. And, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you brought. I had it in my notes. I can't believe I was skimming over it. But yeah, Flaherty basically they went to an arbitration battle. First time they had done it since I think like Greg Jeffries back in what, like '94? Am I right? Wrong?
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and Flaherty ended up winning. And what happens for those of you that don't know is the Cardinals make an offer to a player of what they think they're worth for that upcoming year, and it's always a raise based off of prior year's numbers, and they take other players that makes have similar performance and put all those things into their little performance blender and say, we think you're worth 2 million. And certain players usually will accept it, or they submit their own offer. Like I may tell Chris he's worth 3 million and Chris says, no, I'm worth 5. And then they might work out a deal in between, like 4 or 3.75, or maybe a little more in the player's favor. Well, in this case with Flaherty, and as almost happened last year as well, they couldn't, on his contract at least, they couldn't come to an agreement on numbers, so it went to an arbitration hearing to where they present their cases. Now, Chris, give everyone a little bit of insight on how these arbitration hearings normally go from both sides.
Well, it's some people think that they just see the numbers and think that, hey, is Flaherty worth what he's getting offered? And, I know that the money that they're doing here, this goes in for players down the line too. This isn't just a Flaherty versus the Cardinals. Right. I know the Cardinals came in at 3 million. Like you said, they try to negotiate back and forth on what each other's wanting. Flaherty wanted 3.9. You would think maybe they would meet in the middle and agree on that, but Flaherty knows his worth. And while some of our fans might look at it like, why didn't he just accept the offer or meet in the middle? If we're thinking outside the box and say Jack Flaherty was just a free agent, would you offer him a $3.9 million deal to bring him in? Like, I think he's worth that.
No.
I mean,
Well, would you? Yeah, no, I guess you could look at it how the players look at it that from that angle, right? But the front office looks at it differently. It would be
right,
like you needing a job and you come to me and I say, Chris, I'm going to pay you $18 an hour. And you come in, you show up on time, you do your job, right? And then you say, hey, I'm doing my job. I'm showing up on time. Other people show up late and stuff. I want $30 an hour. Well, Chris, that's not really how it works. You agreed to come to work for us for this, and you've done what you're supposed to do. Just
right.
because you're doing what you're supposed to doesn't mean we're just going to hand you more money. Now, usually an employer will, it parallels with regular work, even though obviously it's not in terms of money. Usually your employer will come to you and say, hey, you've done a good job. We want to keep you or pay you more, which is what the Cardinals have tried to do with Flaherty in the past. And he hasn't accepted it because he's trying to prove a point of how he thinks the system is wrong. Now,
Yes,
also keep in mind this system was put in place, as I think you mentioned too, Chris, union and the Major League Baseball agreed on this format until it's changed. And everybody loves it, does it. So what happens though, Chris, when they go to this arbitration hearing? If you're on the Cardinal side, you're obviously trying to prove the case of your number and vice versa for Flaherty's agent. So sometimes there tend to be hurt feelings. Kind of tell everyone from what you know, what happens at these hearings.
well, just from what I've seen, I mean, it can leave a bad taste in a player's mouth if they don't. They might look at it like the team isn't necessarily honoring what they originally came with, but like you said, that's the way that it works. Baseball teams, they have you under team control. They have you under what the pay is. And even if you're kind of outperforming that, you might go into these hearings and get a little bit of a bonus, but you're not going to get necessarily a huge contract offer that's going to be more than what it is. And if you start doing that for one player, then the next player is going to expect that same type of thing, and it's just a snowball effect. So you've
Which
got
the
just
Cardinals normally have done in the past. They've done it with DeYoung and Wong in the past. They usually work out some kind of contract extension to avoid
yeah,
those arbitration years. And the player makes way more than they would have normally. But then the Cardinals also might save money as well by doing that extended deal because, if the player continues to get better, they can make a lot more. But
yeah,
it kind of goes in both hands. And I just want the fans that don't follow it as closely as we do to see how things work because when you have a player like Dexter Fowler or Matt Carpenter to go make all this money, when the player does bad, the team doesn't have a chance to go back and say, well, you got to give us money back. We were paying you $18 million a year because you were this guy that hit 300 and hit 20 home runs and had 75 RBIs. You didn't do that. So you played like a $8 million player. So doesn't get that back. So it's trying to be protective. So you have to look at it like they are from a business standpoint, not blaming the front office. And I think, can be said on both sides. Flaherty put some stuff on social media afterwards that wasn't very professional. And he should just be happy that he got his money. It's $3.9 million. It's a lot of money. He's a great pitcher. I'm not doubting his ability whatsoever. But what happens at these arbitration hearings, what everyone doesn't realize is whenever they go into this, these don't work out well and they try to avoid them because the Cardinals go in and prove a point that Jack Flaherty is not worth what he says he is. They're going to talk about last year, how he had a bad year. His ERA was over 5.5, and why they think he is not deserving of it. And a lot of players take that personally and will take it to heart. And these two sides don't have a good working relationship already, at least what we know that's been presented to us by the real media.
yeah.
So, Chris, if you want to raise from your department manager and you go to present it to the owner of a company and you're listening to your boss over there say how you're not worth the raise that but you eventually get the raise, are you probably not a lot afterwards, are you? You're not going to be all chummy and high-fiving each other.
No, and like in the beginning too, when a player signs and they're under this club control, not necessarily using the words trial basis, but you're getting these players on the cheap on their first few years because you don't know if the potential is actually going to stick and these ball players are going to be as great as they're projected to be, but also in case of an injury. If you throw out like big money right off the bat for a young guy and he goes out there and blows his arm out, has Tommy John surgery, is never the same again, then the early days of a player's career, and I know some fans like to say that's teams taking advantage of the players, but that's almost like the dues that they have to pay in order to, once they get past that, then they're getting these big paydays that are ungodly amounts of money. So this is almost in a way of like paying your dues, of realizing you're not going to get the big top dollar right off the bat. Those big paydays are coming, whether it's for the car from the Cardinals or not. Personally, I think Flaherty might be California bound at some point in his career, where the big money will be. But for the time being, it's, I think 3.9. It's not really hard for me to say he's worth that when you look at what type of pitcher he is and the potential he has. But at the same time, you got to look at it from the team standpoint, that it is a business. This is how it goes. And it's a shame that some players do get their feelings hurt in that process. And him taking to social media the way he did, it wasn't the most professional way of kind of, I got what I wanted, kind of a jab at the Cardinals. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting, and to show people who also keep saying that, but I want to try to make sure we explain it so everyone that listens, whether they're diehard, and relate to the topic of. But this is going to happen 2 more times. This will happen in next year in 22 and 23, because he is not a free agent until 2024. So this arbitration, whether they go to a hearing or not, we don't know. They could always work out a contract extension, which could happen. But I would agree with what Chris said. I think Flaherty's one of those guys. He's definitely been all about the money since he got here, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think he's definitely going to want to test free agency. So I got a Cardinal Cuts with Chris Lawless question for you now. If Flaherty goes out and has a good season and performs well, are you going to keep him and take him through arbitration for 2 more years, or are you going to trade him away while you can and get a huge return on investment with prospects and gosh knows who else? That is the real $1 million question, because I don't think he's going to sign with his team. Do you? I mean, he might, but he's going to test free agency for sure.
Yeah, I think for sure he's going to test the market. When he come up and he was so flashy and has, so much promise when we first saw him, and I know he kind of fell off a bit last season, but you think to yourself, with him being mentored by Wainwright and, having the relationship he had with Bob Gibson, you kind of just have that hope of, hey, this guy is going to be the next guy that's going to be here his whole career, going to be a great pitcher. He's going to be our ace for many, many years. Then you kind of see some of these, not necessarily red flags, but things that might make you think he's more into the money, that, he has no direct ties other than that this is the team that he plays for currently. And
right.
I could see going, California's a California kid. Those are the teams that usually have a lot of money that they could throw out, it would be hard to say, not knowing how things go behind closed doors and how the relationship is with him and the ownership. But I don't know. I mean, do you trade him or not to get something out of him? A lot of that, I think, depends just as much on the relationship they have behind closed doors as it does with how great he pitches next season.
I think you definitely, unless somehow, Wainwright and Molina come back for 2022 and the team wins it all this year or gets damn close, then I say you don't think about it. You wait and see how the season goes, but maybe halfway through next year or after that, he's definitely going to test free agency. I think a pitcher like that, you have to put yourself in the frame of mind of, look what the Padres and these other teams have done, and now they're where they're at. The Cardinals still do have a good farm system. We're ranked 11th out of 30 teams. We just acquired Arenado, and it didn't hurt us whatsoever because we kept all of our top 10 prospects. I think in that kind of case, if you have a pitcher, the quality of Flaherty, if he performs this year, obviously, I mean, you still don't know what you're going to get. We keep forgetting Flaherty's still pretty young and doesn't have a long major league career. I mean, he had a great year 2 years ago, not doubting that, but last year was not good, but a lot of it had to do with COVID. You can say whatever you want, but the numbers on paper say otherwise. And you could say it with Edmund 2 years ago. He was a great player. He wasn't a bad player last year, but he definitely wasn't the player from 2 years ago. So, I mean, you definitely have to take a look at that and say, if this guy wants money and wants to test free agency anyways, yeah, we want to sign him, but that's probably not going to happen. Let's trade him away early, get a huge return if he's the ace that he thinks and says he is, and we hope he is, get a huge return, and then try to chase him in free agency yourself. I feel like if you do that, if there's already hurt feelings and, bad relationships, it's not going to get any worse by trading him away. And if you really do have a good relationship, then your ability to re-sign him shouldn't hurt either. So I think our next big guy is going to be Liberatore, who's in the minor system and coming to big league camp also. And again, we'll get into that in our next episode, but it's very good. It's going to be very interesting with Flaherty, depending on how he performs this season and even into next off season. But, 2 more years of arbitration than free agency, and he's definitely going to want to tempt the system, I think. So,
yeah, that does give us 2 years, assuming everybody comes to an agreement on the arbitration. But 2 years, I mean, a lot can happen in that time. If the Cardinals go out and they win it all, does that, somehow make him more expendable, or hey, we really need to lock him down? I think winning a title, and I'm not, going ahead and predicting Cardinals are going to do that next year, but they're going to be in the thick of things. And that could definitely change how they view what they want to do going forward as it pertains to somebody like him.
Sure. And we do have good pitching. We've got KK, who was great last year, and I think a lot of people are underestimating him, and hopefully Mikolas is healthy. And then we get him back. So I think our pitching is stronger than people think. And then with us basically going to be having one of the best bullpens in all baseball, I think we're going to be in a good position. So last week we had our tribute episode to Bob Gibson and Lou Brock, and we're not announcing that yet, but don't forget to tune in on Thursday. Chris, do you want to kind of explain what's going on with that? And we had a little deal brought up with a prize from Larry Cox.
Yeah. We had talked about this, this season we'll be doing some giveaways throughout the season. It won't be every episode. It won't, it just kind of every now and then we're going to throw out some giveaway ideas. And what it'll be is people that have subscribed to our YouTube channel. They'll need to send a screenshot of that subscription, and with a mystery word that we will say during the course of what episode we choose to do the giveaway on. And we ask that whoever catches that mystery word and has that subscription to the YouTube channel sends a message to our Facebook page, Cardinals Nation 24/7, submit that mystery word and that photo, and you'll be entered to win a giveaway prize. This time's giveaway prize is a Bob Gibson Hall of Fame statue. We've got several submissions already, but we encourage people to go out, even though the show we put out a few days ago. You can always go on YouTube, watch it, find that mystery word, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and send that into the page, and you'll be entered to win.
Excellent. And then you will announce the winner when?
Well, we will be announcing this week's winner on this next episode. So anytime we do a giveaway, we'll try to do the giveaway and give people about a week until the next show, and then we'll announce the winner on that show.
We'll do it live on the show so everyone can see and hear who it is. So I'm sure we'll contact you somehow. You'll hear one way or the other. But this is the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast, based from our Facebook page and group, Cardinals Nation 24/7, that were founded by Chris Lawless. Basically, what we would like people to do is, like Chris said earlier, go to YouTube, watch, like, subscribe, drop us a comment. But if you're not Facebook page and group, please check them out at Cardinals Nation 24/7. The pages are in this description of this video. Share all kinds of news, fan pieces, that kind of thing. If you're into that, join the group. If you're not, you just want the official what's going on with the team, that's more for the page, which we try to share as much content as we can on there. So please check us out, like us there. If you're not a big video fan, become one and watch us on YouTube, but you can also get the audio versions of this on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Hopefully, I think we're still working on that. You can catch me on this podcast or on my audio podcast, Redbirds with Red Wine, which is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And Chris, where can they find you?
They can find me at Cardinal Cuts on the Anchor and Spotify, and on Twitter at Cards Nation 247 is our Twitter account. And you can also find us on Instagram at Cardinals Nation 247.
And if you have questions for this or individual shows, you can find me on Twitter at JM Redwine. That's at letter J, letter M, red wine, just like the drink, but no spaces. And Chris?
At _Chris Lawless.
You can, and if you need to know how to spell that, it's on the screen. And join us. We're going to try to release a traditional weekly episode every Thursday on our YouTube channel. We'll also share the link to that on our Facebook page and group. These episodes like this are bonus episodes, which you will see more often in the off season when we make acquisitions like the several we did here. And if we had just done one of these, we probably wouldn't have talked about it, but we figured with getting Quezada, Caesar, Sanchez. Oh, that's not like a Caesar Sanchez. It sounded like an old person there. Those are two different people. Caesar.
It's funny when you said that earlier. I was thinking we've got Johan Quesadilla and we've got Matt Caesar salad. So I'm hungry.
Amber, if you're not hungry, you will be by the time we're done with this podcast.
Right.
And then with Flaherty, re-signing for the 1-year deal for 3.9, we wanted to talk about that also. So,
yeah.
Thanks for stopping by and joining us. Feel free to check us out on Thursday, where we will announce the winner of the Bob Gibson retirement statue furnished by our one and only Larry Cox. We'll announce the winner on that show. And that's all I have. Thanks for stopping by, and go Cards. Take it away, Chris.
Go Cards.